I am so thrilled to be moderating this panel of fantastic women. And I'm so happy to be talking about the power of mentorship and role models. I know at the Story Exchange where I work, it's a media platform devoted to women, we often cover powerful and influential women, in part because we want to provide role models and maybe a little inspiration to women who may be in need of that. And I know that all of our editorial decisions are driven by this notion of you can't be what you can't see. And with that, I want to start with Alana, because I know role models and this concept of you can't be what you can't see is really baked into the mission of ETRA. So if you could tell us a little bit more about what ETRA is, and maybe a little bit about the research you're doing too, that would be great.
Absolutely, I'm so happy to be here, thank you. ETRA is the French word that means to be. And what I have is a mentorship platform that helps girls see early and in person everything it's possible to be. What we do is we take girls as early as middle school directly into companies that they ask to see. So think Google and YouTube, and we were at the stock exchange yesterday, and they meet female executives, and we're in the boardroom, and it's their meeting. And they get to ask women everything they want to know about career options, career paths, equal pay. They're asking substantive and smart questions from an early age, and it puts them in the room. The reason I did it originally was because I took my daughter in to see my accomplished friends at work, because I wanted her to see women in these roles. I didn't know about the data that. What we've done recently is research that just came out in February, where we did a national survey to see the current state of girls' confidence and to see whether the confidence boom we see in the boardroom is just anecdotal or is it real? And it's real. What we're seeing right now today is that between the ages of 13 and 18, girls' confidence is dropping by 20%. And the percentage of girls within that age range who say they feel smart drops by 50%. But the good news in the survey was that 91% of girls say that higher confidence is directly related to mentorship. 9 out of 10.
That's incredible.
So we can, I think, all of us, make a tiny dent in that confidence gap that Karen was talking about before with these mentor moments, whether it's in the boardroom, whether it's in your companies, anything like that, a place like Luminary that Kate runs. These mentor moments can really close the confidence gap, and so that's what we're working on now.
Can I just add one thing?
Yeah,
because
sure.
I love what Alana's doing, and we've been friends and partners now for the last couple of years, but if you, piggybacking off of that research, Dove has their 20th anniversary of a Real Beauty campaign this year, and the research came out. And if you look at the younger, the Gen Z and then Gen Alpha, which is behind them, they did a study and they said, if you had to give up a certain number of years of your life to look the way social media and the world is telling you to, what would you be willing to sacrifice? 5 years of their life to look the way society thinks they should look. And so when you think about confidence and mentorship, this is exactly what ETRA is doing and building up these young girls as they head into their professional, academic and professional career.
Yeah,
Get them while they're young.
showing them women who would not give up those 5 years.
Great,
The women
exactly.
at NASA, the women at the space station, the women at NBC or any of the other places where we take girls and introduce them to these women, those women would not give up 5 years. So maybe a few minutes with that woman, the girl changes her mind. Yep.
So we've been talking about mentoring, and I know mentoring happens all the time at Luminary. And I wanted to ask, has anyone been to Luminary? Yeah, it's an amazing space. I know you have a few locations, I believe, right? But the one I've been to is the one on Broadway and 30th, and it's fantastic. But can you talk a little bit about what Luminary is?
Sure, I'll keep it short or long story medium, Karen. So I spent the better part of 2 decades in corporate investment banking, and as much as I was running businesses and building and running P&Ls, I was just seeing a real lack of investment in the pipeline. And when I say pipeline, not the top talent, not the rising stars, the middle, sort of everyone else, and sort of evaluating and investing in them. And so 6 years ago, left my bank job and started Luminary. We are now, thanks to the pandemic, we started as a physical location where all of our mentoring and programming and development and collaboration occurred in a physical location in New York. The pandemic forced us in a great way to go online. And now we're in more than 30 countries. We have a B2B and a B2C model where we work with individual members. So business owners, women in the traditional workforce, women in transition. There are a number of them in the audience, luminary members, and then we work with about 100 companies. And thinking about how to invest in the pipeline differently through workshops and programming and coaching. We bought The Crew, for anyone knows The Crew, Tiffany Dufu's company. We acquired that last year, and we've integrated that into our model. And that physical location is a great vessel for all of that to happen, but we now do that digitally around the world. And then we have a network of partner spaces, about 37 now, both in the US and abroad, where our members in our community can come. Last point is we are gender inclusive. And there's a real reason around that, is because we can't do it alone. I look in all of these rooms, and we do it at Luminary every day. If we are only talking to ourselves, change will not happen. So we need the men, we need allies to help us as we continue to build and progress and navigate our career. I wouldn't be sitting here without the 5 main male mentors that I had in banking.
This is sort of gender inclusive, but I see all the guys in the back.
Yes, thank you, male allies. The team at Worth is amazing.
But I think when we were talking about this panel, you mentioned that the topic of mentorship is sort of the number one thing that comes up all the time.
Yeah, I think in particular in the companies that we work with. So we work with heads of talent, DE&I, chief people officers, et cetera. And then we work with the RGs. And we always say, what's coming out of your employee surveys, engagement? It's always mentorship, sponsorship, confidence, and then advancing my career. And you sort of need all of those 3 things that I just mentioned in order to navigate and advance your career. So we really start with that mentorship piece. And that's one of the number 1 workshops that we offer to the companies and the broader community at large, because to Karen's point earlier, entrepreneurs need this just as much as anyone navigating the traditional workforce. As an entrepreneur myself, I need that.
Possibly even more so, because it can be such a lonely endeavor.
It's the loneliest thing I've ever done as a sole founder and as a self-funded founder. It is so hard. And so we have to be open to asking for help. We have to lean on each other. Alana and I met as I was just starting Luminary, and she was a few years in. And so we lean on each other. We're each other's peer mentors. And there's mentorship comes in all shapes and sizes.
Yeah,
There was a huge comfort in that. I didn't know what I was doing. I had been an M&A lawyer before this. I was a brand new, very unlikely founder.
I was a banker.
Like, thank God I met you.
Yeah.
On the flip side of this, I want to ask about the corporate perspective. So Supriya, you're with SAP. Is there, within SAP, is there a formal mentorship program for women or anything like that?
Yeah, actually, there is one. There are a couple actually, which run within our employee network groups. I don't think this is working, right? Can you hear me on the back, by the way? No.
No. Good question.
The tech doesn't seem to work with me. I think so.
You want to
I
share?
think you can hear me now at the back, right? Awesome. I'll try and speak a little louder as well. Yeah, let me just
Can help, maybe?
There you go.
I was destined to have that. Let's try this. So at SAP, we do have a variety of mentoring programs. But before I answer the question, I want a little bit of show of hands on how many of you actually work in the corporate side of things, and how many of you are entrepreneurs? So the corporate side, if you could please raise your hands. Okay, so the vast majority are entrepreneurs. Look, when we think of the corporate side, there is an element of entrepreneurship even here, right? All of us have to own our careers and find mentors and sponsors to be able to advance ourselves. I've been an entrepreneur in my previous, life, and I'll say that finding a mentor is one of the hardest things to do, but converting that mentor into a sponsor is even harder. Our research internally, and I have the head of D&I talent here as well, sitting in the room, she can confirm that, Monica Daya. We find that women are over-mentored and under-sponsored. And there is an element of building up that relationship of mentorship to the level where they convert themselves into a sponsor. Sponsorship built organically leads to far better results than anything else.
So what's your definition of sponsorship?
So a sponsor is anyone who is willing to speak about you, positive things about you, in a room where you're not there. Who is an advocate for you, who can vouch for you, who doesn't just give you career advice as a mentor does, right? A mentor is somebody who will give you career advice, who will openly tell you how to, find other mentors, find contacts, and so on. But that mentor is not necessarily given the responsibility of speaking on your behalf, right? So I found in my career journey as well that while I had wonderful mentors and great friends as advisors and so on, converting those mentors into sponsors was the key to actually making it into business, into the corporate world, into several levels within the corporate world as well. So long story short, SAP has a variety of programs around mentorship, internal coaching and so on. But several of our employees also provide coaching and pro bono consulting to the external world. We've got some programs that are running very specifically for women, for the Hispanic community, for the Black community, and so on. But yeah, we consider this to be one of those powerful tools to advance both our folks internally and externally.
Awesome.
And I'll say the same. I totally agree. The 5 male mentors that I talked about in my career, all of them became sponsors. All of them, because they watched, they learned, they listened, and they saw performance, and they saw results, and they saw the questions that I was asking. So organically, that happened. And I think with mentorship, oftentimes we see this over mentoring, but more importantly, it's people will reach out and say, "Oh, can you be my mentor?"
Yeah.
That is not how mentorship happens.
Yeah, and mentorship can take different forms. I know, is it Luminary that does mentor moments?
We have mentor moments
Yeah,
every month.
what is that?
We do 2 mentor moments every month. It's virtual only. And it's really a seasoned or leader, entrepreneur, someone anywhere in their journey, we bring them on. And anybody can join from the Luminary community and ask as many questions as they'd like. Because the reality is, you may think Karen Kahn should be my mentor. She's an amazing peer mentor. But I may just have one question that I want her to ask. And in 5 minutes, I've gotten something out of that relationship. She's gotten something out of that. And I don't have to spend the next 3 weeks trying to schedule a coffee with her.
Right, yeah.
Because that's what's happening.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be a career-long
And some
thing.
will,
No,
some
and
will.
People are more receptive, I think, when you phrase it that way. And I say the same thing to girls or any women that I'm talking to. Saying, "Will you be my mentor?" is just going to go nowhere.
Yeah.
But saying to someone, and you can be in middle school or high school or our age and ask this, to say, "I have 2 questions. Would you answer them by email?" It doesn't even have to be in person. I saw your TED Talk and it resonated with me. Could I Zoom with you for 15 minutes? These are mentor moments that are a really light lift for the mentor or the champion or the sponsor, but an incredibly impactful thing for the person who's asking the question, and baking in that courage to ask those questions early and ask for a mentor moment. That girl who does that at 14 or 15 is going to be comfortable in the boardroom later, raising her hand, asking a question, asking for advice in a mentor moment from you.
Did you want to say something,
I
Sabrina?
think you were being
Yeah.
And can I just,
Going
because I think
quickly.
the other thing is the over mentoring piece that you talked about. Women often go just to women now. Well, first of all, there's not enough women. We need more. But secondly, don't just, sorry, I'm having constant hot flashes. So I have a fan. Menopause. So the M word. So you need different perspectives. So if you're an entrepreneur, don't just surround yourself with mentors that are entrepreneurs. They're in the same shit that you are. Surround yourself with people with different perspectives, right? So, and if you're in the corporate world, get out of just going to that one woman. You also need men to sponsor and mentor you. It's a really important part of our journeys. Diverse perspectives, diverse backgrounds, peer mentors, reverse mentors, and then senior mentors.
Awesome. And unfortunately, this panel is already coming to a close. I want to ask, we've been talking so much about mentors, and you've already given a little bit of advice here, but what is your best piece of advice for anyone out there who wants to find a mentor? Supriya?
Look, I think regardless of wherever you are, one has to be strategic. I find men typically being very strategic about the relationships they will build, the people they will speak with, when they will show up in the office, you know, the CEO is in the office, I'm going to show up around them. Let's be strategic in our conversations, in the relationships we build, especially when we are interacting with folks in the business environment. We're here to make friends, you know, but more importantly, we're here to advance our careers as well. So be strategic, be enthusiastic. Many times I find that when people approach us or, you know, approach mentors and sponsors, they are like, you know, full of all of their troubles and they think it's a venting session. Please don't do that, because sometimes it conveys a sense of lack, maybe a sense of incompetence as well. So please be enthusiastic. And finally,
That's a good tip for a lot of different, you know, places, at family reunions, during dating, yeah.
university. But the third thing I think when it comes to mentorship and finding mentors and keeping them so that they turn into your sponsors is, please provide frequent updates about the good things that are happening with you, right? Instead of always seeking guidance and always seeking a solution, it's important for the mentor to also know that you're progressing ahead. So it's all about the strategy. It's
Yeah,
all
and a bit of a
about
two-way street. Yeah.
That is my advice. It is a two-way street. It is not just about the person that is mentoring you. You have to make it a win-win, a real conversation, whether it's that 2 questions, let's get into it, or it's a lifelong mentorship. One of the mentors from Bank of America, who was one of my senior bosses, but was a mentor first, became a sponsor. Over the years, we built up a great relationship. And he found himself a few years ago looking for a new role. And he came to me, right? And so my network had built, you know, very large now that I'm an entrepreneur and all of my banking contacts. And it was an amazing opportunity for me to be able to give back to him after all those years of him mentoring me. Now it's always a two-way street. And don't think so transactionally. If you've got that one question, amazing, but then follow up and continue to nurture and build those relationships.
Follow up.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you've got the last word, Alana. What's your best piece of
I
advice?
would say 2 things. I would say, first of all, be fearless. If it's a mentor moment or something, you just don't know who's going to say yes or with whom your story or your question is going to resonate. Gloria Steinem has sat down with our girls. Astronauts and professional athletes have said yes when girls want to meet them. So be fearless about it. And then the second thing is pay it forward. Answer that email when someone says, I read your book and I loved it, and would you answer a question for me? Or you work on a floor above me and would you sit down with me? Pay it forward. Answer the email, respond to the DM. It can be as light a lift as you want, but be fearless and then pay it forward.
Yeah, I love it. All right, well, Kate, Alana, Supriya, thank you so much for this advice. I think
What's your
everyone-
advice?
Yeah.
Oh, what's my advice?
You got
My
30
advice-
seconds.
Well, I've got 30 seconds. Actually, you mentioned a book. I find that I get a lot of mentorship through reading, whether it's a news article, a profile of a very inspirational woman. I've been very into reading memoirs lately. I just recently read Shonda Rhimes' memoir, and there were so many takeaways I got from that. So I found that to be kind of an interesting way and maybe non-traditional way to find mentorship, but that's how I do it.
Great advice.
Yeah.
Great advice.
Great.
Thank you.